Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I hope you've enjoyed the program so far. As I said, I have a really special guest today, Bishop Tony Robinson, the Bishop of Wakefield, formerly of Leicester, where he worked for 12 years, do you say, Tony?
Yes.
And he's been here for the last 21 years. And that means I've known Bishop Tony for 21 years now. Because when he first came to Wakefield, I used to work in Wakefield, and he came to see me, and since then we've known each other.
We were both handsome young men then.
I'm not sure I was handsome then. I'm handsome now. I'm sure many people dispute that image of me. But I mean, Bishop, as I said before in the first part of the program, I have tremendous respect for Bishop Tony. He's been an instrumental person in my life in helping me, actually making me a better Muslim by challenging me to try and become a better Muslim by working across my neighborhood, by working with other people, making sure that I don't only think about myself, but I think about other people who may not be Muslims. So in that sense, he has actually helped me become a much better Muslim than I probably was previously. So thank you, Bishop Tony, for that.
No, I share
before we went for the break, and I'll just elaborate on that. I think sometimes we are too insular. We are too fearful of other faiths and other communities, thinking that if we get too close, it might dilute our own faith. As I said, it's actually helped me strengthen my faith itself. And actually, it's opened up to me what Islam is really all about, which is that Islam is not just about us praying 5 times a day and fasting and looking after ourselves. Islam is about other people as well. And that is something that is fundamental in the life of a Muslim. So come back to Tony. Bishop Tony, just before we went to the break, we started talking about your work in Pakistan.
Yeah, sure.
It's unfortunate, I mean, we had to go for the break.
That's okay.
And you're talking about the money that we raise in this country to help people back in Pakistan who've been the victims of terrorist attacks, brutal murders that have taken place over the years, just simply because they're people of a different faith. And how you've also helped work with across other faith communities, not just the Christian community. I mean, obviously, can you elaborate a little bit more of the type of, I know you did some work around water wells and things like that, if I remember.
Yeah, sure, but that came out of, go back to the 2009, there was an attack on the Christian community in Gujarat, and they, I think nine people were burnt alive because a mob set fire to their houses, and they couldn't escape. And Yaqub and I thought that we should try and do something to make a difference in that town. We managed to persuade the Foreign Office here through the government minister to give us a bit of money. They gave us only £25,000 to sort of, in government terms, that's a small pot of money.
That's absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Yes.
And what the plan we had was to bring from that town 12 people. That was 3 of Christians and Muslims. So there were 3 policemen, 3 lawyers, 3 imams, and 3 Christian clergy from that town. And they came for a week here to England. They arrived in London. We took them to meet the government minister who'd given us the money. We went to the Houses of Parliament to meet MPs. We went to Lambeth Palace to meet the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Lambeth Palace is the most senior residence of the
Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the Church of England.
Yes.
And then we came up to West Yorkshire via Muslim Hands in Nottingham, where we went to see the work that they do as a charity. Then we came up to West Yorkshire. We had, so the 3 policemen spent some time with the police here in West Yorkshire, learning how they cope with some of the problems that they have here and look after a minority, the Muslims here, in a majority country. The lawyers spent some time in the court, and the clergy and the imams met together with clergy and imams here. It really was a moving experience to spend that week with those 12 people. And it made a difference when they went back to that town. That actually they were now talking to each other and they were working together on projects. So that when instances happened in Gujarat after that, instead of people being arrested and thrown into prison because there were accusations about blasphemy or whatever it might be, some common sense took place. And people talked about it and managed to resolve those issues without resorting to that sort of negative
violent reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a good piece of work. And one of the things that happened during that time, we went to have tea with the Archbishop of York in York, who's the chief bishop for the north of England. And over the supper, he asked them, what was one practical thing that we could do to help you in that town? And they all agreed, the 12 of them agreed, that actually providing clean water was a practical thing that we could do to help those communities. And so we set about raising money here. We raised, I think it's £12,000. And we worked with the governor of Punjab at the time, who had developed these filtration plants, which cleaned the water, because the water is contaminated with arsenic from industrial waste and everything. And only the wealthy people can afford to buy bottled, clean, sterile water. And so this filtration plant was put into a school which served Christians and Muslims, and now 3,000 families around that filtration plant get clean water every day. So that was
still going?
Still going, yeah.
Excellent.
And then only last year, Yaqub went back and opened another one in Lahore, which is also serving Christians and Muslims. So it's a very practical thing that we can do with a relatively small amount of money. I mean, you know, to have clean drinking water in 2018 surely is a basic human right.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Now, I would say that if people are, don't have access to clean water, then we as human beings have failed in our duty, in my view. Whether you're Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh, it doesn't matter.
It's a great crime when you think about all the money there is in the world. And there are people in Africa, in Pakistan, India, where they do not have access to clean water. It's just outrageous.
So, I mean, how can the Muslim community continue to help you? I mean, obviously, when you raise the money for this water project, I mean, did you go to the Muslim community as well?
Sure. Yeah, we've had dinners and meetings where we've been able to fundraise for all these projects over the past 15 years, and much of the money has come from, contacts and business people in the Muslim community, as well as from churches and from individuals in the Christian community.
And is this work still going on?
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to do some work to try and highlight some of the differences. And I think on my 3 visits, we've been able to meet. We went to the Grand Mosque in Lahore, met the chief imam there. We've good relations with him and with other clerics. And I think at that level, I think there's a commitment to see both communities working together. I'm afraid it's down at the village and the grassroots level where perhaps education is not as good as it could be. Well, it's certainly not as good as it could be. And that's where some of the nasty incidents happen, and the bullying and the fighting and the attacking of different communities, not just Christians, but other minorities as well.
It's regrettable. I mean, this is, to me, it's all because of lack of knowledge of Islam. Rather than anything else.
Absolutely.
People don't have enough knowledge of Islam themselves, and they're radicalized, and they become, they become sort of brainwashed into some sort of thinking.
We know how easy it is to whip up a mob.
Oh, it is,
and, from any community and any group of people, and people are taken in by people who look as if they're educated, and they're spinning them a yarn about what their faith really means. But actually they're just twisting those people for their own ends rather than and using, like suicide bombers or other innocent people who they persuade to do things which, anyone with
they would never do it themselves.
Would never do themselves.
Yeah, they'd never do it themselves. Exactly, they're cowards. They'd never do it themselves. They get other people to do it for them. I mean, in terms of that work that you're providing water, which is one of the key fundamentals of life. Are you still raising money, and how are you doing that? What sort of initiative have you got?
Well, as I say,
Yaqub
only went last year, and we need to try and raise some more money. We've got an Easter party after Easter this year, which has invited lots of people to the IQRA in Bradford, and not very far from here, both to celebrate Easter, but also to invite our friends from other communities to be part of that.
Let me know.
Yeah, sure. And we also are hoping to go and visit the Pakistan High Commission to talk about how we could do some more practical things. I said all this was happening on £25,000. That's a very small amount of money.
Yes.
And our hope always was that we would take a group of people, police, lawyers, Christian clergy and imams from here, to go and do some more intensive work over a couple of weeks, training more people in Pakistan. Because I do think when people hear this good news story about how communities can get on with each other, that surely is going to stop these attacks. It's going to stop.
Inshallah, yes.
It's going to make people live together, work together in those communities as well.
Right. Apart from Pakistan, have you done any work in other countries around Africa or the Asian subcontinent? Have you?
I haven't done any practical work. Well, I mean, we have the diocese here, we have a link with Tanzania. So I've been 3 times to Tanzania to work there, met some Muslims there as well. And I've been on one visit to India. But that was with the Archbishop of Canterbury back in 2010 when we were mainly visiting the churches there. But actually we also, of course, you can't go to India without meeting Muslims and Hindus and other communities there.
And are you planning to go back to Pakistan again?
Well, I would like to go back because I have really enjoyed my time there. Some great food and some great people. And I hope very much to go back again. Yeah.
Well, inshallah, hopefully you will. I mean, taking on more, taking that line of thought forward in terms of building bridges over there and between here and over there, showcasing how we live as side by side in peace and harmony, by and large. Although recently we've seen some tensions develop.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this work obviously, like you say, I think is important. I think it's vital. I think if we showcase how we have managed to come together and share a platform, it will maybe help influence other people to do.
Yeah, there are many there are plenty of stories in the newspapers, on the radio and television about bad things that happen by a small number of people. I mean, even if we talk about the far right and extremists, they are on the whole a small group of silly, misguided people. But on the whole, there are lots of good news stories about different communities living, working, sharing together. The problem is they don't hit the headlines very much.
Yeah, they're not shared, are they, widely?
They're not shared widely. Good news doesn't always sell papers or whatever. And we have to keep, you have to just keep battling away at telling those stories and saying, actually, most people in this country,
the majority of people
are good. The majority of people look after each other in their communities and wider than their communities with their neighbours, maybe of different faiths.
When you said, for example, the example you gave of young people in Wakefield, handing out flowers and providing food for the homeless, has that, in your opinion, helped develop better understanding between the wider community?
Well, I think
have you seen that happen?
Yeah, no, I think it does happen because it's a practical thing that they can see people doing rather than just talking about it.
Right.
Actually, if you do it, if you offer flowers or you offer food to the homeless and things, then that speaks much louder than words, because it's actually putting words into practice. So I think...
So, I mean, Bradford has got a very good history of providing food. We have a group of people here who provide food as well to the homeless once a month. I think this centre actually provides food as well, once a month to the homeless as well. And I know there's initiatives to do something similar in Dewsbury and in Huddersfield.
In Wakefield, the Penny Appeal, which are based in Wakefield, every Tuesday evening they provide food for the homeless in one of our churches.
Oh, right.
So 20 or 30 people come every Tuesday night for a meal.
And, that's fantastic.
So that, it's another practical way, a demonstration, this time from the Muslim community, trying to help, our local people, communities.
Regardless of what faith they may be.
Yes, absolutely. That's what
I know, for example, in Batley, where I live, the food bank, which is, very well used, unfortunately, regrettably, very, very well used.
Here to stay, I'm afraid.
Regrettably, in the current circumstances, is
when you and I met 21 years ago, we would not have predicted.
We'd never heard of a food bank.
No, but we wouldn't have predicted there would be so many.
Exactly.
Well, we've always had people who are hungry and homeless, and they've often given food, particularly if you live in a vicarage, you would get people calling saying, I'm hungry, can you give me some food, some sandwiches or whatever. But not on the scale that we have now.
Yes, unfortunately.
I mean, that's a sad reflection of our society today.
And I was involved in setting up the Batley Food Bank. And I was one of the first trustees when we set it up. And I remember when we first asked for collection for people to contribute the first time round. 15,000 items were donated by the local Muslim community. And 90%, probably about 95% of the users of the food bank were non-Asian people or non-people of colour.
Yeah, sure.
So it was not, the white, majority of them were white community. I've now been told, I'm no longer a trustee, I've now been told that some Muslims are now also using the food bank. And these may be people who are refugees and asylum seekers who don't have access to the welfare benefit system. So, this is something we need to actually be mindful of. And
it may get worse when universal credit comes around here.
Yes, it does. Yes, it will.
More people will be struggling. And I don't think many of us can really understand what it must be like not to have any food for your children.
Definitely.
I think it's a definite human need, like we were talking about water, clean water, but actually as a parent not being able to feed your children, and that is
must be a dreadful feeling.
Dreadful feeling.
As a parent, it must be absolutely horrifying for a parent to have to worry about where the next meal for their child or the family is going to be coming from.
Sure,
So I would urge every Muslim viewer that who's watching this program, follow the lead of Bishop Tony that is just mentioned. Let's become better citizens. Let's become better Muslims. Let's go out there and find out where our local food banks are, and let's see how we can contribute to make sure that those food banks never run out of food, so that there's always stock there for people to come and access. I mean, this is something that, as I say, we've been doing. And I know that mosques in my area, and particularly the madrasas in my area, do make regular appeals to the children to say, look, next week we're going to be collecting for the food bank, so please bring in food. And there's a list of, usually there's a list of items that the food bank wants. So if you are watching, which I know you're watching, I urge you, if you can, wherever you live, wherever in this part in the country you are, please, please, please go out, find out where your local food bank is, and try and contribute as much as you can. There are many, many other people out there who don't have the same privileges that you and I have. So inshallah, Allah will reward you for that, and these people will thank you as well. I mean, in terms of the work, international work, this work around Pakistan, as you mentioned, to me is very vital. And you're continuing that work. And how widely do you think the Muslim communities engage with that? I know you say Yaqub. I mean, I know Yaqub not that well. In fact, I saw him on Friday at the Pakistan Celebration Day. He was there. He's a really good guy who works very hard to build bridges. But I mean, beyond that, have you made any other contacts with other Muslim businesses, Muslim communities? I mean, for example, in Batley, we've got a very large Indian Gujarati Muslim community. I'm not sure many people are aware of some of this work that is going on there.
Well, I think we've tried to we don't have many resources, we don't have any money, we've just raised money to give it away.
Right.
And Yaqub he works in those communities, he knows lots of business people, and I think the message has got out. We've had some good publicity for this work.
So when is this event taking place?
The Easter party is on the 13th of April at the IQRA in the evening, and
all right.
So that's just another way of trying to...
Obviously, people have to buy tickets for it?
Yes.
And you know how much they are?
I think they're £20, I think.
£20, right. So, and do you have a capacity issue? I mean, how many people?
Well, I think there must be a
limited capacity. I was going to say, here's something that people may want to be maybe interested in. Who do they contact?
Well, I suppose they could contact me, but they could send an email or something, and we can let them know details about that.
Right. So it's Bishop Tony Robinson.
bishop.tony@leeds.anglican.org.
Right. So we'll try and repeat that at some stage.
Okay.
But coming back to this country, interfaith work. I mean, you and I have been involved in interfaith work. We've seen that interfaith work dilute in some cases. To me, which is a real shame. And when I sit with ministers, which I've, in the past I've done, I've mentioned this issue about the need to re-strengthen, re-energize interfaith work. I mean, in your view, how vital is it that this interfaith work is brought back into the mainstream? Because institutional organizations, like local authorities, who were previously supporters and sometimes provided a little bit of funding towards it, are all finding it very difficult to finance these things. So where do you see this being resource coming from?
Well, I think a lot of it now happens with volunteers. I think we just don't have any paid people doing this sort of work anymore, which is a great shame. I mean, the government only announced last week that it was giving money to Bradford and four other places to do some integration work. It's a drop in the ocean, but it's at least a beginning.
It's 5 million for Bradford, isn't it?
Is it 5 million?
It's 5 million for each of the...
Is it for each? I thought it was
somewhere I heard it might be.
Right.
You might be right. Yeah.
I think it might be 5 million for the 5. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think it's that great of money, but that's all about trying to get Mr. and Mrs. Smith to meet Mr. and Mrs. Patel or whatever and learn more about each other. Any initiatives that can do that. And I think many of our churches try to twin with their local mosque and try to do things together. I think we just need to encourage more of that.
Actually, have we got a lot of those engagements taking place in West Yorkshire between churches and mosques?
Well, there are in the places where there are mosques. Obviously, it's difficult if there's no mosque, but certainly in the Dewsbury area, the Batley area, and Wakefield, we have some cross, fertilisation of doing things together.
Right, that's excellent.
So it's really good.
And I know you've done lots of work with young people as well. I mean, over the last few years, I know, trying to build this as part of the bridge building and getting to know your neighbour type of exercise. You were involved in a football tournament as well between imams and priests and clergy.
It was. Well, there was a whole tournament, was it 5-a-side? It was more than that, in Dewsbury every year. And at the end of it, there was a football match between clergy and imams. I have to say, I'm getting a bit past playing football.
I saw you kicking off. Yes.
Yeah, no, but I couldn't walk the next day for a bit. But most of the clergy were a bit older, and most of the imams were quite young. So
yes, I noticed that.
But we weren't it was only 2-0 or 2-1. I can't remember. It wasn't a disgrace.
It was a fun game.
It was a fun game, and
I remember,
there's also been cricket matches as well since.
All right.
Yeah.
And these are important, aren't they?
I think they're just anything that brings people together to do things together is really important.
Yeah, it is, and I agree with you. So it is important. One of the things I will say that match, I remember in the House of Commons, the APPG, the All Party Parliamentary Group on Islamophobia, that they were made aware of it. And the members of Parliament were really keen to find out at the end what the score was. So I think
well, it wasn't 10-0.
I think it was just about the imams, probably because they were all young, weren't they?
They are young. Yes,
they're all young compared to a majority of the clergy. But I mean, it's been really interesting having a chat with you, Tony. Bishop Tony Robinson from Bishop of Wakefield. I think the work that you're doing, both in this country and abroad, is fascinating and really good. May Allah give you even more strength. Brothers and sisters, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it fascinating. Inshallah, we will continue this program some other time as well. Come invite Bishop Tony back and hear what more work he's been doing. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.